Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about writing, and specifically we're going to be talking about writing hooks. Well, what exactly is a writing hook? Many of you maybe or probably have heard of writing hooks before, but maybe you've heard of the term attention grabber. Okay, a writing hook or attention grabber is something that you start your paper out with that captures your reader's attention. It gets them hooked on what you're actually writing about. There's nothing worse than reading a paper that's really uninteresting. What you want to do when you write a paper is you want to wow your reader. You want them to say, hey, you had me there right at the very beginning. You want them to say, tell me more. Wow, that's interesting, very, very interesting. So it's very important that you start out with that writing hook so that your reader is engaged in what you're telling them. There are lots of different kinds of writing hooks. Let's take a look at some. One writing hook that you can use is the question. The question can be a variety of different questions, like how many times can a person, or why do people do, or is it possible to? Do students care? Can the world really? See, when you're formulating a question for a writing hook to start out your paper, you don't want to just ask the question that is actually asked of you in the writing prompt. You want to come up with a thought-provoking question that relates to the topic, one that's going to capture your reader, one that's going to make them think, and one to wow them, that they're going to stay interested and want to continue reading your paper. So, again, one of the writing hooks you can begin with is the question. Now, another writing hook that you can begin with is the definition. Now, obviously, everybody knows what a definition is, but when you're using a definition writing hook, think beyond just the definition of one word. Think about defining an idea or a concept that's related to your topic. You can, of course, define a key word, but you want to make sure that your definition isn't just one plain sentence, that your definition spans over 2 or 3 sentences and gives your reader a full idea of a rule, a concept, or a term that you're going to be talking about in your paper. So definitions can be a double-edged sword. They can be really, really interesting, or they can be really, really boring. So if you pick a definition, make sure that you pick a wow definition, that you pick one that you're going to be able to expand upon in a couple sentences and actually capture your reader's attention. Another kind of writing hook is beginning your paper with a scene or a situation, kind of getting your reader into the story, if you will. Now, especially when you're writing persuasive essays, you're not going to be telling stories throughout the entire paper, but you can capture your reader's attention by beginning with a scene or a situation that relates to the topic. Think about if you're writing a paper about a cell phone and you begin your paper describing how a room was quiet and everyone was concentrating on the test, and then a phone rang. And then maybe continuing on with what would the teacher do? What did the students do? Or maybe you could just start with the situation that started on a Monday. So a scene or a situation literally will describe something that is happening. Now, scene or situations to me are some of the most interesting, but they can take the most time. To fully describe a scene or a situation, you're going to need at least 3 to 4 sentences. But you know what? I think these are the easiest to come up with because everybody can tell a story. So it's kind of like telling a story at the very beginning. So if you're a great storyteller, a scene or a situation may be the writing hook for you. Another writing hook that you might use, and you probably have used sometime, is a quote. Now, some people think that when you use a quote, you have to pick a famous person, but you don't have to pick a famous person. You can pick somebody who relates to your topic. You could pick your principal or your mother. Now, you can pick famous people like Dr. Brabrand. We know what he always says. It's important to keep the main thing the main thing. Or you can quote famous people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but don't get wrapped up in thinking that a quote has to be from people like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or Mahatma Gandhi or Muhammad Ali. A quote can be anybody that has led insight or provided insight into the topic of your paper. You could even make up a quote. You just have to make sure that you formulate it correctly and that you assign it to somebody who kind of conveys wisdom and authority on the topic that you're talking about. And that might be your parents, it might even be a friend, but just make sure you formulate it correctly. Other kind of writing hooks are figurative language expressions. Yeah, that's right. You could begin a paper with a figurative language expression. You could begin papers with similes or anecdotes, oxymorons, metaphors, and even hyperboles. Heck, you can begin a paper with an analogy or even personification. Now, this is a more elevated style of writing hook, but I know that you can do it if you put your mind to it. So samples will be provided in class. So if you want to step up your game, you might want to consider using a figurative language expression, like a simile or metaphor or what have you. Now, there are lots of other kind of writing hooks. Just a few would be, for example, giving advice statements, kind of starting out your paper with what the reader should do or what the reader will be able to do. Or maybe presenting a dilemma, a tough situation that people have to make a choice about. Or maybe even predicting the future. These are other great writing hook examples, and all of these will be explored in class this year. So, the main thing that you need to remember is when you create a writing hook, you have to wow your reader. You have to keep them engaged. You have to make them want to read. It can't just be starting your paper simply because you have to. It has to be starting your paper so that you have an audience, so that you wow them and they want to read. So good luck and happy writing.